my next conversation is going to be with Alkasim Abdulkadir. So I paused when I talked to him because I wish I had a whole day to talk with him, because the issues at stake is quite big. And I think it's also fundamental to Nigeria going forward, and that is the issue of the northeastern part of Nigeria, internally displaced Nigerians within Nigeria, refugees within Nigeria, and so on and so forth. Hello.
Hello, Chief. Hi.
Hello, my brother. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Good to see you again.
Good to see you too, and thank you for joining us and patiently waiting.
Absolutely, no problem, no problem. Glad to be here.
The situation in the Northeast is not often very clear to many Nigerians. And many Nigerians are not quite clear what the situations and circumstances of many people are in the northeastern part of Nigeria. Could you give a kind of like a quick overview of what the situation is like now in particular, right in the midst of the pandemic? Already the situation is dire, but then we have an unprecedented pandemic on our hands.
What is going on in the Northeast and in some parts of the country is a different pandemic. In the Northeast, for example, in the states of Borno, Adamawa, and Yobe, with Gombe, Bauchi, and Taraba, they've seen an ongoing active war for the last 10 years. As I'm talking to you right now, there are soldiers in the bush tracking Boko Haram insurgents. There are soldiers in the Lake Chad basins tracking Boko Haram insurgents. So aside the coronavirus, aside COVID-19, there's always been a war. So now the internally displaced people in the Northeast are actually battling two wars. On one hand, there's the war against Boko Haram, and on the other hand, there is trying to keep safe from contracting COVID-19. But it's easier to fight COVID-19 and fight the oncoming hunger than be safe from Boko Haram, because the fight against Boko Haram is an asymmetrical warfare. You don't see your enemy. You just try to stay away. You just try to stay safe behind the state lines. But with COVID-19, you have hands, you have to keep physical distancing or social distancing. You have to ensure that you follow the protocols of keeping safe. And so far, so good. Even though there have been cases in Borno, for example, it's been handled well so far. We were on the verge of a tragedy when a nurse in Pulka got infected with coronavirus. He was a nurse. He was a medical person working with Medicine Sans Frontiers, which is Doctors Without Borders, and then he was the index case in Borno State. Now, if not for the quick intervention of his symptoms coming to fall, it will have been very dangerous if the disease had spread in the camp. Because Pulka itself is about 3 hours from Maiduguri. From Pulka, you go to Goza. These are extremely hard to reach areas in the Northeast. But for the fact that he was evacuated early enough to the Federal Medical Center in Maiduguri, they were able to quarantine his colleagues and quarantine his family, and that was taken care of. We're lucky that for the swift response of that, or we'll have had a very, very huge catastrophe on our hands. At the moment, the landscape is looking better.
The one word going up in my head all the time is Almajiri, because we've seen lots of the videos and pictures and news reports where these young men, mostly men, because I didn't question where the girls are, are being tossed from state to state. What's happening to them? What is the situation on ground with them in particular?
Okay. It will be very difficult for me to talk about the Almajiri in just one breath. However, I'll do my best. We need to understand that the Almajiri culture in the northern part of Nigeria predates modern Nigeria. It goes back to almost 800 years. Now, if we have this at the back of our mind, it will be easier to deal with. However, what has happened is that the idea of children as early as 3 years old going to communities around the north to seek Quranic education is an idea that it's time. Very importantly, the Almajiri or Tangana school system is a system in need of reform. If you remember correctly, during President Jonathan's tenure, he tried to reform the Almajiri school system by trying to build facilities around the north for them, by trying to ensure that there's a bit of a merge between Western education and the Quranic education. However, COVID-19 provides a very unique opportunity for the north to reform the Almajiri system. Luckily enough, the Northern Governors Forum met and said that Almajiris in various states should be evacuated back to their states of origin. That's why we saw a lot of tossing around from Kano to Nasarawa, from Nasarawa to Kano, from Kaduna to Kano, from Kano to Kaduna to Bauchi, crisscrossing the entire region. What this shows us is that this is an idea that time has passed, and all leaders of thought, all governors, all clergymen in the north will have to come together post-COVID and reform the system. I'm glad that very prominent civil rights activists and people in government like Mrs. Miriam Ways are coming up with ideas to reform the system. The UN system too in Nigeria is putting together a blueprint to try and step in and reform the system. That is good to be seen. Let's remember that of the bulk of the 13 million out of school children, more than 90% of them belong to the Almajiri cadre. So it is important that we reform the system so that they can begin to live in dignity like other Nigerians.
What support is there for young men like that? And what support is there at all for young women? How do we even find the young women who have been displaced in similar ways?
Yeah, it's beautiful what some of the state governors have done. They were able to organize some of the Almajiri, put them in buses, take them across state borders, and also isolate them for a period of a week. After the isolation, they were able to give them stipends, they were able to give them new clothes, and they were able to unify and reunite them with their families. This is a very, very beautiful thing. It's something that we've never seen on that scale. And some of us are saying to ourselves that if we can do this, if COVID can compel us to do this, it means we can come together on a round table. We can have very, very honest and serious conversations around reforming them and also reunite them to their families and look for a way to ensure that they benefit from Western education and also they benefit from the Quranic education that they have gone to the cities to seek. So what we are seeing, what we are hoping is that Kaduna State has taken the lead with Governor Nasir Al-Rufai. They're in talks with the UN system. They're in talks with people in government like Mrs. Miriam Ways. We're hoping that there is a very honest conversation with a very clear blueprint and impactful ideas on how to be able to rehabilitate them further after COVID-19. One very fortunate aspect of the Almajiri school system is that there's a very tiny percentage of women involved in this particular system. I make bold to say that up to between 95 and 98% of them are young boys and young men. So we don't have a lot of women who are part of this, but I also understand that a lot of the women have also been reunited with their families so far, compelled by COVID, of course.
You know, what does the Victim Support Fund do? Where's the money from? What does the money go to?
Okay. I'll start with where is the money from. The Victim Support Fund was inaugurated in 2014 via a fundraising campaign made up of the private sector and also the government. Captains of industry contributed money for the fund. So it's like an endowment fund, and the monies have been in the banks in fixed deposit account that have revolved over the years. So with the advent of COVID-19, the chairman of the Victim Support Fund, in person of General T.Y. Danjuma, set together a task force, an emergency task force, to be able to look at the issues around coronavirus and also bring palliatives to the teeming number of Nigerians. And the committee, the subcommittee, had a mandate. It had a mandate to go beyond IDPs for the first time and also cater to millions of vulnerable people across the country. So what the Victim Support Fund has been able to do since the inception of this committee, it started work on the 14th of April, is that it first started with its primary constituency, which is the IDPs. So we've been able to flag off food distribution drives in Abuja, in Maiduguri, in Adamawa, also in Yobe State and Taraba State. And what we did in these states was to group together households and be able to give them food parks. In those food parks, we have 10 kg rice, 10 kg beans, 10 kg gari, 10 kg maize, cooking oil, and salt and other condiments for them to be able to cook. In the first phase of this exercise, we targeted about 300,000 individuals. This is made of households, and it's been a program that has been well received because the food packs have been very rich and been able to go around several households. So I'll say that getting across to people who don't have anything, it's a very, very beautiful thing to see. State governors are thanking us for coming to their states to support them. Right now, as I'm talking to you, in Benin, Edo City, yesterday we met with the governor where we give them their own contributions. In Benin, for example, we've spent about 154 million naira. We just came back from and Warri today, where we saw the SSG and also the Olu of Warri, where we also made a donation of foodstuffs totaling another 154 million naira. Cumulatively, so far, we've spent more than R1 billion naira providing foodstuff and also providing personal protective equipment, because we discovered that doctors on the front line are suffering from a lack of PPEs, and what we've been able to do is to procure enough PPEs and distribute them to doctors and medical practitioners at the front line. So in summary, this is what the Victim Support Fund has been able to do in the last 1 month. We'll continue from here to Enugu State, to Ekiti State, and hopefully to Niger State and Kwara State, and also some select states across the country where we think that there's a need for us to intervene and take care of the people, the vulnerable people who are there. We're looking at states with very high social fragility and also high vulnerability in other.
What popped up into my mind is, and this is a question that's going around the world, that if this was possible, why have we not been doing this? And I'm not speaking specifically to you, I'm speaking around the world, the ways in which governments of different places are supporting people, are supporting enterprises. Why did it take a pandemic for us to do what feels right? And could we continue along that line, not just giving out palliatives to people, but actually putting resources beyond human development? And I'm going to go back to the IDPs because of that. Because in my mind, I haven't been to an IDP, but I have a mental picture from the pictures I've seen and the videos I've seen that it's going to be virtually impossible to prevent a major breakdown where there to be community infection there because of the way people are forced to live. So the first thing is to ask what the prevention mechanisms are for those camps in Nigeria, and also to ask about resettlement of the people, because an IDP camp is a transitional space. It is not where the people should be. Eventually, they should be able to go back to their homes and to their communities and be supported in restarting and resettling their lives. Of course, that's tied to fighting Boko Haram to go first, one thing after the other. So could you speak to that in the first instance? Why did it take a pandemic for us? It means that we could have been giving people this. It means that we could have been supporting the poor. It means that we can do a lot of the things that we see ourselves doing now. And can this be taken forward, do you think?
Okay, it's a not a very easy question to answer. However, I'll make an attempt. there's a people find it very difficult to support government, especially in Nigeria, which is not far from the fact that there's a trust deficit between the people and the government. So, for example, if you look at even the pattern of donations on COVID, you'll see that there are hardly cash donations because people don't trust that their cash will get to the right hands. So rather, they would like to do material donations. So that's one very, very important aspect, that there's a huge trust deficit when it comes to helping, especially with cash. So people will rather do material donations. People have donated generating sets, they've donated their buildings, they've donated food items, they've donated trucks, they've donated so much, you know, to the coronavirus cause. Again, before coronavirus, just like you rightly asked, there were supports, you know, for IDPs and vulnerable people in Nigeria. However, not on scale. So, for example, the Victim Support Fund itself in the beginning had received about 28 billion naira in cash. What was pledged on the night of the fundraiser was actually about 58 billion naira. Of this 58 billion naira, 28 billion naira was redeemed. So you can see that captains of industries have always supported vulnerable causes. If you go to the Northeast, you'll discover that Orient Oil, in conjunction with Indimi, have built large resettlement cities. Alhaji Aliko Dangote with Dangote Foundation have also built large resettlement homes for IDPs. So there have been support in the past. However, I'll agree with you, not on the scale that we have seen with the coming of COVID-19. We hope that what we have seen, Nigerians coming together, middle-class people, not very wealthy people coming together to help the government to donate from their little earnings, to offer their services, to volunteer. We hope that we can see more of this even long after Corona has passed. Because one very important thing is that it shows the humanity in all of us, that it took a pandemic to really unify us. Is a very telling issue. Back to the issue of resettlement. At the beginning of this year, the Refugee Commission, headed by Senator Bashir Mohammed Garba, came up with the idea of resettlement cities, whereby it worked with the state governments of Borno, Adamawa, Yobe, including Cross River State, Akwa Ibom State, and even Katsina State, whereby we already reached out to them to give us land to build resettlement city. We had gone a long way to partner with organizations like the Qatar Foundation to be able to ensure that we're able to attract funds to build these resettlement cities. Unfortunately, coronavirus came, COVID-19 started, and we had to put the idea on pause. But we already have the design, we already have the urban drawings, we've already spoken to stakeholders. We are already in talks about locating large numbers of people to new settlements. We call them resettlement cities. This is an integral part of the work of the Refugee Commission in 2020. Unfortunately, COVID-19 happened, and we hope that perhaps after COVID-19, we can be able to dust these plans in conjunction with the Qatar Foundation and the UN system in Nigeria to be able to relocate and resettle IDPs.
How do we ensure that the IDPs survive COVID-19? What I mean is that there will be no major outbreak in the IDPs. And once again, I ask the questions about the girls. What is the state of living for women? What is done to support women in IDPs now during this period? Okay.
What has happened is that we have leveraged a lot on risk communication. We have made jingles in Fulfude, in Kanuri languages, in Pidgin English, and Hausa language, whereby we've been able to share the protocols of social distancing, the protocols of washing your hands for 20 seconds on the running water, the protocol of sanitizing one's hands at each and every time. We're hoping that this risk communication will be complied with. It's interesting to see that in IDP campaign, a very, very high number of the use of masks. You know, at the beginning, we were a bit scared that perhaps it will not latch on, but it's interesting to see that they have devised means to sew cloth masks. They have devised means to use handkerchiefs and be able to cover their mouth and nose against possible infection. We're happy when we saw the high level of compliance about face masks in some of these camps. And again, we've had a lot of focal group conversations around the need to be able to keep safe during this coronavirus. One thing that we have also done again is that at the moment we have stopped visitations to camps, because before then we used to find a lot of people visiting camps either on a charity basis or either for one program or the other. So since the pandemic started, we've been able to curtail the visit of outsiders to camps so that we know that those people who are inside are keeping the physical distancing as much as they can and are also keeping safe. We've also denied them exit from the camps. So there's no entry, there's no exit. With this, we are sure that perhaps there won't be any contamination with anybody coming from outside. We have also supplied them with a high number of vitamins for them to be able to build their immune system, because from research we've discovered that vitamins help in building immune system. So we are really trying our best. We don't have all the answers, but in conjunction with the state government, in conjunction with the UN system, with IDPs, and also IDP welfare committees, we are trying our best and praying that it doesn't get into the IDP camps. For women, even before COVID, in the last 5 years, we've been able to design programs whereby we've been able to group women into clusters in the camps. So some of these women belong to conditional cash transfer clusters. Some of them belong to agricultural clusters, whereby we give them pumping machines to do dry season farming, or we give them mini tractors for them to be able to practice agriculture. Some of them also are in clusters whereby they weave caps. If you look at the screen, the cap I'm wearing is actually woven by women. So we have supported them with capital for them to continue this trade of cap weaving. Some of them we have put them in cooperatives whereby they weave mats and the rest of that. Most of the women in the Northeast especially are in cooperative clusters whereby they learn a trade, or whereby if the existing trade, we're able to give them funds for them to continue this trade. So this is the much that we'll be able to achieve with women IDPs in the Northeast.
Is there anything to support women who are maybe being abused? I mean, under any circumstance, they would always they shouldn't always be, but there are always cases of abuse.
Yeah.
So at a time like this, what is the recourse for women who are being abused?
3-4 years ago, we used to have high number of cases of gender-based violence in the camps. The cases of GBVs were very high, and we had to institute a mechanism to be able to investigate some of these issues. Let me quickly share with you a story of what was happening at that time. A certain organization had gone to the IDP camps to distribute food, and a middle-aged woman came after receiving her food pack, and she said, which of the room would you want me to go and wait for you at? And the person was dumbfounded and befuddled and was like, I don't understand why you should go and wait for me. And she said, usually when they do food like this, we had to pay with our bodies. So we go and wait for them somewhere so that they can come and have their fill in exchange for the food they have given us. And that person broke down and said to the woman that we are here just to give you this food. We don't want anything in return. So this shows the level of the abuse some years back. I'm glad to report to you that with the Federal Ministry of Women Affairs, with the state governments, with the Ministry of Women Affairs at the state levels, also civil society and civil based organizations, we have been able to get to the bottom of some of these issues by assuring them that whoever they report will be in confidence. And we've been able to arrest some of those people who were camp managers who abused their trust and acted in a very undignified manner. Some of them were actually men of the security agencies. And I'm glad to report to you that since the arrest like 2 years ago, we have drastically recorded a reduction in number of abuses in the camps at the moment.
What's your prognosis for northern Nigeria, especially regarding a new generation of leaders, especially a new generation of ideological and religious leaders?
Yeah, I'll start from the end. Ideological and religious leaders, we are victims of ideology. We have seen what ideology has done to us in the last 10 years. So it means if you leave the wrong ideology unchecked, everybody's going to be in trouble, not only the North, but the entire country. So it means that we should always checkmate dangerous ideologies and ensure that ideologies that are accepted are only universal ideologies, which guarantees the dignity of everyone, which guarantees the universal human right of everyone. If we have these two things in mind, then I think we'll be on the right track as regards ideologies. As regards the new crop of leaders we have on the horizon, never in the history of Nigeria have we had so much educated leaders from this part of the country. Never in our history have we been exposed to so much information. There's a deluge of information everywhere. And when you have information and knowledge, then you can't go wrong. If you have the right information and the right knowledge, you shouldn't go wrong in any sphere of human endeavor. With all of this, we hope to be able to hold our leaders accountable. Most importantly, we hope to be able to sign the right social contract between the led and the leaders. This is very, very important. This is something we've not done in the past, but going forward, this is a promise that we have made to ourselves that we must hold our leaders accountable and we must sign the right social contract.
Excellent. There's a question that kept going up and down about Cameroon, almost like we've ignored Cameroon, that there are refugees in Cameroon, in Cross River States, Cameroon, that border, that's between Nigeria and Cameroon. Nobody ever thinks about that, actually.
Yeah. The Refugee Commission is in touch with refugees in Niger, Cameroon, and Chad. The Refugee Commission is also responsible for stateless persons from other countries, including Syria, including Afghanistan, including Cameroon, based in Nigeria. I was shocked the day in office, I saw refugees from Syria coming to renew their papers. We have Syrian refugees in Nigeria. I was shocked the day I saw them at the office. They had come to renew their papers. I was like, Nigeria of all places, but we have refugees from Eritrea, we have refugees from Syria, we have refugees from Afghanistan in Nigeria, and the Refugee Commission and the Nigerian government caters to their need because these are part of international conventions that mandate us to cater for stateless persons in Nigeria in conjunction with the UNHCR. So also the Nigerian refugees, the refugees of Nigerian origin in Cameroon, Chad, and Niger, the Refugee Commission is in touch with them, and we are working towards bringing them back this year. They will be home sooner than we can all imagine.
We will continue doing what we do. I want to say thank you for joining me for this conversation.
Thank you very much.
Really good job, and traveling at a time like this cannot be easy, flying from point to point. Well done. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you.
Nice hanging out with you.
Bye-bye now. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
And that's my conversation today, my 3 conversations today. We started with the survivor, and then we went on to the head of the Diaspora Commission, and finally to the spokesperson for, it's a long title. So just think of him as a person who speaks on behalf of the IDPs, refugees, and people who are internally displaced. It's been an emotional show to do today because there are many stories that were told casually, but they were quite difficult stories. But then that's what we do here, Public Eye Live. Remember to follow Public Eye Live on all the platforms so you can keep abreast of all the things that we're doing. This particular show was designed specially for COVID, because when the pandemic happened, we looked at ourselves and we said, oh boy, we're in this together. So if we're in this together, what should we do? At least let's provide a platform where we will give everybody equal voice to speak and see how we can rally around one another to get through this. So I'll see you again next Friday. I urge you to stay safe, to keep distance, to follow the protocols, and take care of yourself and your family. See you again next week. Bye-bye.